What happens when democracy dies in the dark? When the very people we trust to protect us, our lawmakers, our public servants, become targets, and when those who carry out the violence are disguised as the protectors themselves. It started quietly in the early hours of a Saturday morning, but within 48 hours, Minnesota would be reeling from the worst political violence in its modern history. A double assassination, a hit list of 70 public figures, and the terrifying realization that one man, dressed as a cop, had slipped through the cracks long enough to try and start a war. This is not just the story of a murder. This is a story about the collapse of trust, the fragility of our systems, and the haunting question left behind. What if he hadn't been stopped? The suspect was a 57-year-old man named Vance Belter. He didn't sneak into homes through a back window or use brute force to break in. He walked right up to the door, disguised as a police officer. He wore a badge, a tactical vest, carried a flashlight, and a loaded firearm. He looked official, and that's what made it all the more terrifying. At around 3 a.m., he arrived at the home of State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette in Champlin, Minnesota. Security footage shows Belter knocking on their front door. Within moments, he opened fire, shooting Hoffman 9 times and Yvette 8. Their daughter, Hope, was also home. She should have been next. But Yvette threw herself over Hope, using her body as a shield. A mother's instinct met a moment of terror, and it worked. Hope wasn't hit. And yet, what she did next may have saved countless lives. Bleeding, in shock, surrounded by the sounds of gunfire, she picked up the phone and called 911. That one call lit a fuse. Within minutes, law enforcement realized a state legislator had been targeted. What they didn't know yet was that he wasn't the only one. With one state senator wounded, police rushed to secure the homes of other political figures. That's when they reached the home of former House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband, Mark, in Brooklyn Park. By the time they arrived, Belter's SUV was already in the driveway. Officers watched in horror as he shot Mark Hortman through the front door. Then he stormed inside. A gunfight broke out, but Belter escaped, disappearing into the house. When SWAT eventually entered, it was too late. Melissa and Mark Hortman were both dead. But it wasn't just the double assassination that shocked authorities. Inside the gunman's car, they found a chilling collection of evidence. 3 AK-47 style rifles, a 9mm handgun, dozens of loaded magazines, flyers for the anti-government No Kings rallies, and most disturbing of all, a hit list. It wasn't short, it wasn't vague, it had over 70 names. The list included state lawmakers, abortion rights advocates, Planned Parenthood staff, and national political figures like Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and Attorney General Keith Ellison. This wasn't just about one grievance. This was a mission, and Melissa Hortman was at the top of it. To understand the scale of this tragedy, you need to understand who she was. Melissa Hortman was a trailblazer. The first woman in decades to serve as Speaker of the Minnesota House, she led with principle, passion, and strategy. Under her leadership, Minnesota codified abortion rights in the state constitution, legalized recreational marijuana, passed paid family and medical leave, expanded free school lunches for public school children, guaranteed free college tuition for families earning under $80,000, strengthened transgender protections. But what made her unique wasn't just policy. It was her leadership style. She led the most diverse caucus in Minnesota history, with 32 people of color and Indigenous members, including LGBTQ and trans lawmakers. She didn't just give them seats at the table. She made sure they had power. She mentored them, empowered them, and helped many rise to committee chairs. Even in a politically divided state, Hortman kept her caucus together. When the state nearly shut down due to budget gridlock, she cast the deciding vote that broke the stalemate and saved Minnesota from a shutdown. She wasn't just respected, she was essential. Minnesota isn't known for this kind of violence. The state legislature has long been praised for its collaborative culture. Lawmakers often know each other's families. Partisan divides exist, sure, but it's not Washington, D.C. That's why the attack shattered something deeper than safety. It shattered community. As news spread, No Kings rallies were canceled statewide. Security was tightened, activists stayed home, and Governor Tim Walz addressed the state with somber urgency. This cannot be the norm. This cannot be how we settle political differences. But there was a much darker question on everyone's mind. Was this just the beginning? Investigators began digging into Belter's life, and what they found was disturbing. He was a conservative evangelical, deeply opposed to abortion and LGBT rights. His online post painted a picture of a man radicalized by conspiracy, isolation, and grievance. He followed extremist accounts, shared anti-government manifestos, and seemed convinced that violence was not just justified, but ordained. Inside his car, officers found detailed notes. He had mapped out targets, new addresses, timed movements. He had posed as a police officer to gain trust and entry. But the most terrifying part? No one flagged him. No system, no watch list, no background check. He just snapped and acted. The hit list wasn't just long, it was precise. It included not only Melissa Hortman and John Hoffman, but names like Ilhan Omar, Keith Ellison, prominent abortion clinic workers, local activists, and journalists. Some of the names weren't even public officials. They were volunteers and staffers, people who had simply shown up to support progressive causes. This wasn't random. It was ideological, and investigators now believe Belter may not have been acting alone. Whether others helped him or not, the intent was clear. He wanted to send a message, but something else happened in the aftermath that added fuel to the fire. As Minnesotans reeled from the attack, reports surfaced of ICE officers conducting plainclothes raids in immigrant neighborhoods. In one case, Isabel Lopez, a young poet and community organizer, was arrested by men in unmarked vehicles. No uniforms, no warning, no identification. She was pulled from a sidewalk in front of friends, just days after a man pretending to be a cop had committed 2 assassinations. Community members asked, "How do we know who to trust? When people in masks can arrest you and people in masks can kill you, what's the difference anymore?" This fear wasn't paranoia. It was earned, and it was spreading. Belter was eventually caught in Sibley County, a small, struggling rural community in Minnesota. The county has seen years of economic decline, schools closing, hospitals underfunded, young people leaving in droves. And that vacuum of opportunity had been filled by anger, by conspiracy, by men like Belter. He reportedly worked in funeral services, helping remove bodies from crime scenes. He had close contact with law enforcement. He knew how to blend in. He had even registered a fake company, Praetorian Guard Security Services, named after ancient Roman military elites. He wasn't just pretending to be a cop. He saw himself as something higher. Melissa Hortman's assassination isn't just a political tragedy, it's a national reckoning. She fought for the things we say we believe in: equity, democracy, public service, care for the vulnerable. And for that, she was targeted. But even in the darkness, there was light. Hope Hoffman, a daughter who witnessed the unthinkable and still had the strength to save others. Hope is more than her name. She is the reminder that no matter how broken our systems become, people can still do the right thing. She didn't freeze, she didn't run, she made the call. And that call echoed through every hallway in Minnesota, reminding us that courage is contagious. So now the question turns to us. What will we do with that call? Will we ignore it? Will we move on? Or will we honor it by demanding safety for our leaders, accountability for extremists, and a return to the values Melissa Hortman fought for? A nation where debate replaces violence, where ideas are stronger than bullets, where no daughter has to hide behind her mother again, and where hope doesn't just survive, she leads.